We began the study of balance with our definition of 0-point balance. We begin to do it in a chair because it's the easiest form to be able to, as I said earlier, to be able to centralize ourselves and begin to experience that each of us is the center of a space. That is, through the metrics and through the definition of 0-point, we will begin to experience that we are centralized in 6 directions of space, that we are in relation to right and left, front and back, and above and below. This centralization within the metrics allows us to experience 7 centers within our sense of being. And these 7 centers is what makes up the line of equilibrium, which is the line of unity between gravity and expansion. The beginning of finding this sense of centering and that we are the center of a space is an extraordinary importance to us and to yourself too. It will be as you study it, because you will begin to see that you are not solid. The complexity with the idea that we're coming from of balance is that each of us, when we sense ourselves as posture or an idea of gravity that bound us, without not knowing the gravity also expand us through life force, through expansion, is that we innocently think that we are self-contained, that we are not fluid as we really are. So the beginning of discovering of 0-point balance and the beginning of resetting within ourselves the metrics allow us to see that we are not who we thought we were. That we are not, as I said, solid or self-contained. On the contrary, we are the centralization of 3-dimensional space. We are partaking of a field of movement that is constantly moving, assisting us. And we are beginning to release then any sense of compression, any sense of opposition, any sense of self-containment that have innocently have keep us in a sense of balance that is not our true nature. We'll start by sitting in the chair in 0-point balance, and I would like to suggest to you that you find a chair in your home or get a chair that is quite high. We don't want a chair that is too low, because then if it's too low you feel like you're sinking in it. So a chair that allows you to sit in it and to be able to sense that when you're seated, that your legs are not it's not so low that your legs are encrusted in the hip joint, but that allow you to be high enough to sense that you're seated in the seated bones. Sitting in the seated bones is very important, because then you begin to have a clear awareness within the hips that allow you to experience the shoulders, the head, and the spine in sort of in a spiral form to be able to define 3 dimensions. So I would like to come forward for a moment and show you what I mean by that. This is the hips, and this is the lower back and the hips, and these are the seated bones when you're seated. And when there's any sense of imbalance, sometimes the hip either goes under, the lower back goes under, or you're on top of it. So to beginning to sense seated in the bones in the chair and allow then the hips to become truly 3-dimensional, or truly horizontal, it will help you, because then you begin to redefine the curvature of the lower back. It's very, very important, but you will discover as you begin to define 0-point now. Okay? So here we go back again. And so we sit at the edge of the chair, not too far back in the chair, because if you sit back then, and if you're trying to go vertical, you may create pressure in the curvature of the lower back. So the idea is to find a place that you feel like the chair is supporting you at the seated bones and you are at the center of it. Then, as I said earlier, the horizontality of the hips then allows you to experience the horizontality of the shoulder girdle and arms at the center of your chest, and the horizontality of your head. The first things that we're going to define is the centralization of the ground. The sensation of the ground through you will depend where you are putting your legs. In 0-point connections in your legs are open a little bit right and left, and they are not too close to you or not too far away from you. in the beginning, it's good for you to go through the boundaries so that your mind begins to comprehend that you can begin to define the point of centering. So if you come in too close to you with your legs, you're going to sense that you are encrusting the upper leg into the hip joint. And if you do that, the lower back immediately is going to react by going forward. And then your spine is going to go like that a little bit between the front and the back. So finding the centering is important because it allows the directions of the floor from which you're sensing the floor to be able to start going vertical through you. So one extreme, as I said, is too close. The other extreme is going too far out, away from you. If you're going too far away from you, you're going to sense that the thoracic vertebra, with the lumbar and the upper thoracic merge, start going forward, and then of course just pushes your head back, and you're again then creating forces of conversion between themselves. So the centering again is the place that allows you to go vertical. So you have 2 points of extreme, too close or too much back. Then you have 2 other points of extremes, too close together. If you close together your feet, then you're going to sense that you're going around the lower back. And then once you begin to go around the lower back, you cannot go vertical anymore, because if you're trying to go vertical, in reality you go backwards. You just push forward and you go back. So again, centering means that you are beginning to experience that you are between the right and the left, the front and the back, and the above and below. And you're beginning to experience right away via the legs, because one extreme closer, one extreme too extended, one extreme parallel, which closes the thoracic, or the other extreme will be too open. Open, sometimes this is kind of a, many people innocently think that opening means going around you in this direction. But if you go too open, then you create a convex force again forward in the spine, and you're losing the vertical again. So if it's too open, it's just as not good as it is too close. So balance is not the point. It doesn't mean too open. It just means the point of connection that allows you to pass through yourself or to be at the center of the space. So once you have a clear perception of the 4 different extremes, too close, too forward, too close in, too open, then you begin to discover that these 4 definitions is actually the in and the out, coming within and coming without. So you're beginning to sense that your hips and your legs are at the center of a space. To be at the center of a space in the beginning is a little bit strange, because we are not accustomed to experience ourselves from the center of our own self. Remember that we're coming from the idea of balance that is like sort of a solid, and if we are solid, we're always looking out. We're going in to look out. In balance, you are in looking out, and you are not creating 2 planes, but you are in 3 dimensions. So as I said, it takes a little while to become accustomed, because it's different than our daily interaction. Because we innocently, just as I said, we go between front and back in different directions, but not necessarily at the center of a space. Once this direction of the legs is created, then we are ready to go into the arms. And the arms have 3 different centerings. The centering of the elbow, connecting the lower arm and the upper arm. The centering of the wrist, connecting the hand and the lower arm. And the center of the upper arm and shoulder, connecting you to the center of your heart, which is at the center of the rib cage. The center of the rib cage is the centering of the shoulder girdle. The shoulder girdle has the scapula at the back and the clavicula that is connected at the breastbone. The placement of your arms have 4 extremes too, and it's good for you to define it. One extreme is that if you begin to sense that if your arms are going too much back. If you sense that your arms are going too much back, you're going to begin to feel that your rib cage goes forward and the back of the head goes back, in order to balance that. Again, the spine, instead of going 3-dimensionally through the spiral and through the center of equilibrium, creates 2 forces. So too much back creates backward force. Too much forward, now center will be the center of 3 dimensions. Too much forward creates a band around the back, and you will begin to notice right away a pressure within the neck here. So you will begin to sense that your shoulders are really start going around. So the center of balance of your arm is the center of balance of right and left that is in between, too close to you or too far away from you. So you're beginning to understand placement. Once your mind begins to understand placement, you understand the balance, the field of balance, which is the fountain of life, is a result. It's a result of the way you place yourself in a space. Once you begin to learn yourself to place yourself, the placement is the balance, the placement is the energy, the placement is the momentum, the placement is the fluidity. So you begin to understand what placing yourself in 3 dimensions means. Okay? So we say too close created a back force, too forward created the back of the shoulders. Now, too close in, it pushes the shoulder into the socket, so the center is in between. Or too much out, trying to open, creates a circle around that is pushed you into a diagonal, and it closes the back of the neck. So centering of your arms imply that you are opening your arms and shoulders and your heart, releasing fluid through the pelvis and the legs, going up through the spine at the center of a space. Remember that I said also that your arms have 6 joints. 1 is the elbow, wrist and shoulders, elbow, wrist and shoulder. And the 6 joints, which are the 6 segments of the arm, connecting the 6 segments of the arm, are centralized as your heart. Beautiful. So just spend a second here. Beautiful. I'm going to take myself outside of the center of the space so you can feel what the difference is, okay? I'm going to take myself back here, and you can see now the gravity is different because I push myself back. So I'm coming back again to the center. Right here is the center of the space. If I go too forward, you see, gravity is going to get to grab me because it pushes me down. At the center of gravity is also expansional, right there. Now, once you begin to define the arms, you can define it through the extremes in order to find the center. You can find the hands. The hands is important because once you define the release of your hands, in reality you're defining the release of your shoulders. Your hands, and as an energetic connection, correspond to the center of your heart. The 10 fingers begin in the center of your heart. Okay? The connection of the hand has 2 different forms of extension. The length, and the width. And the length and the width creates like a form of a sphere, like having a sphere. And then the release of the form of the sphere allow me to extend through the connections of the hands. As opposed, for example, if I go with my hands like this, it's too little energy. If I put too much energy, I overextend it. So the balance of energy is the inner extension that allows me to connect the muscles of my arms through the center of my heart. That is the connection through it and the 0 point. So I have the connections of the legs, the connections of the arm, and now the connections of the head. The centralization of my head is through the center of gravity, here the center of equilibrium. Yeah? And then through the center of the head you have the diagonals here, and then the center of the right and the left, the diagonals in the back, and the center of the back. So I'm placing myself, I would consider to be the center of 3-dimensional space. And here I am. Beautiful. And I begin to spend a few seconds there.